All the national media pundits have Utah outside of their way too early top 25s. Are they making a mistake or do they have it right? That's what we're going to discuss on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time tuning in, make sure you like and subscribe. And once again, appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finance with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, at Monarch Money for 50% off your first year. My name is JT Wisterso, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to have on the host of Locked On College Football, Spencer McLaughlin. And Spencer, you cover college football, so you are perfect to talk about this. Utah is not in many of the way too early top 25s that I see. And while my reaction is I would love to be frustrated by this based on the season they are coming off of, based on a few unknowns, even though I do think they're poised for a bounce back here, I think it's totally understandable why they're not on these way too early top 25s, because they were last year and they obviously did not anywhere close there. So I understand why most national media people are not as high on Utah as in a top 25 team to start the year.
Yeah, I certainly get it. I think if you're a Utah fan, you see that and you're frustrated or outraged by how could you not have Utah in there? It's one of those, okay, what are you really mad at situations? You know, you're really mad at how last season went. Now, my experience with Utah fans, I think people are going to understand it when, you know, you play in the Big 12 and you go 5-7. Yeah, that's not going to give you a whole lot of preseason street cred. And, you know, I come across people all the time that hate the preseason top 25 rankings. They don't matter. People rise and fall. No, they do matter. People hate them because they matter. It's not that they don't matter or are irrelevant. It's because, wait, why is this team getting benefit of the doubt in the rankings here? Because we thought of them one way coming into the season. So to say that it doesn't matter, I think is ridiculous. And to say that, you know, they're dumb and should go away, I also think is ridiculous, because for most college football fans, this may come as a surprise to you and others, JT, but most people don't talk about the sport every day like you and me.
What?
I know. The majority of college football fans have a more casual relationship with the sport. Doesn't mean they aren't informed in many ways, but to say that they could give you a team-by-team breakdown of just the other schools in their conference, I don't think is accurate, which is why I love that we've got the Locked On Network behind us, because we can inform them about the rest of the teams that are in the conference or on the schedule and such. So it's one of many perks of this great network we're a part of. But here's where, you know, I start to do just one of those thrown eyebrows, like, you know, raising one eyebrow.
Raising eyebrow.
I think I should have just said raising an eyebrow, because I was trying to get
I haven't heard of throwing, but it sounded like
I was trying to get too
smart.
fancy
you
with
roll
it.
For it.
Isn't throwing a thing? I think
Throwing? I thought you said throwing. I've never heard of throwing.
No, like FROWING, like Yeah. Anyway, the way I do that is the other day I came across an article from Mark Schlabach over at ESPN, who had his post-spring preseason top 25. Most of it I thought was fine. And then he threw in Oklahoma there at number 25. And I was going, whoa, wait. You've got a guy who I like, by the way, at quarterback, in John Mateer.
Mm-hmm.
Just
added Jaden Naughton.
They had Jaden Ott from Cal at running back, which is good, but is more of a luxury item than a necessity position. And their offensive line still is going to have a lot of questions. Their defense should be good, to be fair. Oklahoma should be a good defensive team. But a guy who has never played against the SEC, who against Texas Tech last year went, I think it was 9 of 19 passing the ball. Again, I'm not down on John Mateer. He was one of the top 5 quarterbacks that I had hitting the transfer portal in this 2025 cycle, winter or spring. You're taking that guy and making him a foundational part of why you think Oklahoma steps back to where they were in 2023, as opposed to posing questions like, how exactly is it different than Utah? Oklahoma needed quarterback stability. They found it with a guy who played mostly Mountain West teams last year and is a dual threat. Now, where have I heard that story before? Utah. Utah is the same. The difference was one game. 1 game. And by the way, Oklahoma went to their bowl game and lost to Navy, for those that are curious. That's the team that's getting respect because they play in the SEC, which I don't understand at all. So I don't say this to argue that Utah should be a preseason top 25 team, which is a crazy thing to believe, but have firm backing for doing so. If, you'd said that to me going into last season, for instance, like, what are you talking about? The preseason Big 12 favorites, not a preseason top 25 team. What happened? Well, we all know what happened at this point. But for Oklahoma to get that benefit of the doubt and for Utah to not, it's just one guy's opinion, pretty big guy's opinion, to have out there and such, I think is reflective of the good old SEC bias that we know and love to hate. So, for Utah being outside, yeah, they should have to earn it. We'll talk about their first game of the year against the biggest circus in all of college sports, at least in the offseason. But yeah, I think Utah is appropriately not seen as a preseason top 25 team.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. I think you make a great point. Like, yes, the rankings matter, but they don't define you. Like, you can go out and prove that wrong. We see that every year. Florida State's preseason ranking, they wish it defined them last year. Most certainly did not, is what I would argue was the most disappointing team in college football. But this is a Utah team.
Well, they were, by the way, on Florida State. I don't know if you know this. Do you know who famously picked Florida State to win the ACC last year?
I'm going to say it was you, but...
No, it was not me. It was not me.
You teased it up. I don't know.
My preseason pick was Miami.
Oh, good call.
Nick Saban picked Florida State to win the ACC. Just for all the comment section dweebs out there who come back on an incorrect prediction from you or me or any other pundit, you just don't know ball, man. Can't wait for you to drop the Saban doesn't know ball card after he picked FSU to win the ACC, and they won one conference game, and it was against Cal, because of course it was against the Justin Wilcox coached California Golden Bears. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Statistically, by the way, the worst preseason top 10 team in the history of college football.
Florida State was? Wow.
Yes, they were.
They were bad. Like, was not as high on them going in last year, but I don't think anyone expected that. What ended up happening was it just got really out of hand and ridiculous. One thing for Utah that I have a lot of hope for, though, going back to Utah, I don't think they deserve to be on a top preseason 25 because they have justifiable questions. Can they answer? But I like a lot of the pieces they have. I think things come together. I think Utah's going to finish in the top 4 of the Big 12 as we sit here right now. Spencer McLaughlin, you say what to that?
Possible. Very, very possible. I was in the camp last year of you're a healthy Cam Rising away from being in the Big 12 championship conversation. Not necessarily the game. ASU was really good. Iowa State was really good. Kansas State was in there. Colorado was solid. Like, there were a lot of teams that were in the running, and for good reason.
Good job not mentioning that other one. Good job not mentioning that other team.
I didn't even think about that. Like, I just forgot them by accident.
Yeah.
And then they popped in my head like, oh, yeah, BYU was in there too. And then you said, I was like, oh, yeah, here we go. But no, I think Utah would have been squarely in the fold. The defensive numbers didn't fall off. People weren't going out and scoring 40 a game on Utah. We didn't come away from the season going, boy, Kyle Whittingham should hang it up. Guys forgotten how to coach defense. Like, no, they were missing the one position. Maybe another, quality receiver or two could have done them a favor. Certainly.
Singer had 700 yards with Wilson. That's solid. You get Mekhi Bernard, what he did. You have 2 offensive linemen that are in every single 2026 mock draft.
Every single one. Spencer Fano is like the first tackle coming off the board in everybody's view. That's the way it seems. So, yeah, I don't think Utah is. Obviously, they pulled back last year. I think it's a lot closer to rebound this year than it is stagnate. That's just the way that it feels to me. Because, the thing that they were known for, they always had. They just needed to go out and fix the one spot. Well, they went out and got a solution. Whether it's the right solution, we'll see. But they can't be worse than last year.
I don't think they will be. I have big expectations for this team. I think they're a major bounce back candidate, and it's going to be exciting to see. One thing that is fascinating to watch and see is the future of college football. There was a crazy thing that's kind of trying to be passed right now, and it will have massive ramifications for Utah and honestly, every college football program. What are we talking about? That's what we're going to dive into in one moment. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. with Monarch Money, have you ever just been in a situation where it's like, hey, I am trying to save more money, and all of a sudden you check your bank account and you're like, hey, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you can just stop managing your money and start building your wealth. There's that all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I can save even more. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use that code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, for half off your first year with that code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com today. Spencer McLaughlin back here with me. College sports are a wild turn of events right now. While we're all kind of waiting on the House settlement, there's something else pretty big that was reported. It was by Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports, who put out a story that the power conferences are working on a contract to bind schools to new enforcement rules with strict punishments. There is a lot here, and not all of it has been figured out yet. But one thing to know is what they are trying to do is enforce, in a way, your NIL. So it said, hey, where are you getting this money from? You are going to have to report that if this comes into effect. And Tennessee is like passed a law. They're actively trying to get away from it. So this whole thing is a mess. But I think it will be overall great for the sport if, Spencer, they can find a way to regulate all of this and at least say, hey, like, you have to report where you're getting the money from for this NIL deal. Spencer is muted right now, so we'll wait for him to remember that he is a host of Locked On College Football and Locked. He has two shows, by the way. He does two shows and still forgot to unmute his mic.
I did. It happens to the best of us and the busiest of us, you know? So anyway, the confusing part about all of this is nothing is known about how this can go. And with the NCAA, they have continuously been beaten to a pulp in court anytime someone takes them there. And so essentially this potential new enforcement mechanism that the conferences are agreeing to but haven't agreed to yet but could agree to would remove the ability of any school to sue it or to challenge it. That's one of the most shocking proposals that's been put out there, because what states have done individually is they have passed laws with regards to NIL saying, yeah, you can just disregard what the NCAA says because it's become an incredibly toothless organization. And so this is trying to create a structure that everyone has to adhere to, but everyone has to adhere to it. And you know what the punishment is if you don't opt in to this new enforcement arm that they're creating?
There were some big ones we talked about in the story, right, Spencer?
You can get kicked out of your conference.
That was it. Yeah, that's right.
You could get kicked out. Dellinger lays it out very well. And to follow this stuff, I don't think there's a better follow out there than Ross Dellinger, except for maybe Dennis Dodd, but I think Dennis Dodd retired recently. So I don't have a strong sense right now. I really don't. Wish I did, but I don't, about how this plays out and how do you square the one hand of we want to try and rein all this in, and the courts have time and time and time again said that's not legal. You can't do that. Like the initial NIL case that legalized name, image, and likeness earning potential for college athletes, JT, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was a 9-0 decision from the Supreme Court. You have any idea how poor a legal basis you have to be on to get a 2020, 21st century Supreme Court to say, yeah, we all think that you guys are totally wrong. You have to. So that's just one example of several. There was a Tennessee situation. I think they beat them in court. USC. There have been several. And so to set this whole thing up, I don't think it's even been officially proposed. I think they're just kind of in advanced discussions about rolling all of this out. But I think the intention behind it is good, but it appears to be a contrasting path for college football, compared to the reported presidential commission to explore the possibility of how to fix NIL, the portal, and all of this craziness and such. And so when you have states that are saying, yeah, we don't want to cap what kids can make in college, and then you all and the powers that be saying, well, we kind of want to put a cap on it, we want to limit this. They've also enlisted one of the big four accounting firms that are essentially going to assess whether an NIL deal is fair market value, which again, I understand the intention behind, because there are plenty of deals, and this is not restricted to major college football or even major college sports. There are plenty of deals that get made for college athletes that I know about at all sorts of levels that I can tell you are massive overpays and are not on a bang for your buck good investment. But hey, it's the collective's money. They can do whatever they would like. And how do you put a price on the power of winning or being relevant? In their view, they can't. But they bring in this accounting firm, I think it's PwC, to basically come in and assess these deals and say, yeah, you can't make that. That's too much money. How's that going to go over? Because you know who's going to challenge that? Everybody and their mother, literally sometimes, I'm sure, will go to court and say, wait, you, an accounting firm, are telling my son he can't enter into a mutually agreed upon contract between him and the collective that they're willing to pay. No one's forcing any of this sort of stuff. So I get where the intention is. My first read on it is I don't know where this actually winds up, how much power this group could actually end up having. But my other read on it is I don't know, based on the history, that it's actually legal. And if it's not, if you roll something out and then the courts 2 months later go, oh, yep, that's illegal. Well, then what are we doing here? So I don't know what we're doing here to answer the question, but I'm going to stick around and find out.
It's incredibly intriguing. I think the other thing about it is, like we said, this is in response. This is the Power Four conferences doing it. This isn't the NCAA doing it, trying to regulate NIL. It's the P4 conferences doing it. And in a way, like that could in a way hurt the Alabamas and like some of the SEC schools, like who have those resources that they can just throw at guys. Instead, if you have to regulate that and go through that. Now, granted, you won't have your players poached and taken away, but still, it's really interesting to think like the SEC and the Big Ten would be willing to, in a way, put a checker over themselves, basically, Spencer. That surprises me.
Well, one of the big contentions I think that they're trying to get to is the House settlement proposes, a $20.5-ish million to start salary cap, basically, on what the schools can pay. Not what kids can earn in NIL dollars, but what schools can pay the athletes with money that the university has, because collectives are third parties. So that attempt also might face a legal challenge. And so if you can't do, well, what exactly can you regulate here? So I don't know is the answer to the question. I think you're going to see a mad scrum this summer before all this, whatever it is, gets rolled out for people to go get the biggest NIL deal that they possibly can. Because when you're facing uncertainty that where you don't know whether or not you're going to be able to make the same amount of money a year from now, of course you're going to go get it. If I'm capped at $250K next year, but this school will give me $1.5 million, what am I supposed to just brush off $1.25 million? No, of course not. That's a pretty life-changing amount of money for a lot of people. So most people, I would say. So like that is just what that is one of several aspects, as I've laid out, that makes this whole thing so interesting. And the back and forth of, traditionally in these settings, I've talked about it because it is, frankly, a Big Ten SEC power grab. They're just trying to regulate. They're trying to do that. But one of the schools that's mentioned as potentially being at odds from a legislative standpoint is Tennessee. And you're telling me, according to Ross Dellinger of Yahoo, the punishment for not opting into this new enforcement group is you get kicked out of your conference? They won't play you? They won't pay you? Like that's the carrot and the stick. Boy, the stick is the size of a tree trunk, and the carrot is one of those baby ones you give a rabbit in its cage. Like that's not comparable there, at least in my view, unless there's no legal weight behind it. So
It's a lot, and as we said,
Fun
so
stuff.
much of this is still like they're just trying to figure it all out. They're waiting on the House settlement, which hopefully is coming soon. That's what also is made clear in this. It's like we think we're getting close to that, but we still don't know the exact
it's been
date.
talked about for like months, but
forever. Yeah, I mean, they're giving us more content. It's the off season, but like eventually we'd like to actually get to the dang thing and see if it comes out. So be interesting to see where it all ends up at. And one thing we're incredibly excited to see where it ends up is Utah versus UCLA. It's a massive week 1 game. The spotlight got amplified because of Nico Iliamava coming there. So how's it going to shake out? What was that bad?
that was so bad.
What is it? You go. What is it? Go.
Iamaleava. You added like
Iamaleava.
2 L's that don't exist. There's
I did-
one
yeah,
L.
I'm stuck on the Amaliva pronunciation of it. That was my favorite. So I think that was stuck in my head.
Oh man.
Spencer will be hosting the next part, so he can actually say the name correctly on the other side.
Look, they say Vegas always knows, but does Vegas always know? JT Witzfield of Locked On Utes here with me to discuss this mind-boggling point spread, which is Utah at UCLA, week 1, August 30th. Suddenly one of the most interesting games in all of college football after the Nico situation unfolded in Knoxville, now to Los Angeles, of course. But this line, JT, according to our friends at FanDuel, is Utah minus 3.5. Astonishingly, last week it was minus 1.5. Can you explain that to me, please? Because I look at that and go, should I bet a month's salary on Utah? Because what are we talking about here? Nico, UCLA, like no way, right?
Yes, way for Utah. I don't see how this is going to be UCLA like steamrolling Utah. I think it's too many new pieces having to come in. Does Utah have some transfers too? Yes, but what does Utah have? They have all 5 starters on the offensive line returning up front. From a UCLA defense that is lost their 2 leading tacklers and has a lot more that they also have to replace too. So I really like what I think Utah will be able to do offensively, even though, hey, Devin Dampier, Utah's quarterback, threw 12 interceptions last year. So I'm not saying he's going to come in there and light the world on fire, but I am concerned about this. If I was a Bruin fan, I'd be concerned about UCLA's offense against Utah's defense. We know Nico's nice. That offensive line last year was not, and they brought in a lot of new transfer portal pieces. And what does it take time, especially for the offensive line, to do? Get on the same page communication-wise. Who is one of the worst teams you can play when you're trying to get on the same page? Utah and Morgan Scalley. Because what is Morgan Scalley going to do? He's going to blitz, and 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 it gets crazy. And you'll be like, wait, this guy's coming. Like, who's sliding over? Who's going where? And Nico is a guy. I think he's going to get pressured fast. This is not a wide receiver core, and they actually have a former Utah receiver on it in Mikey Matthews. It is not a scary wide receiver core, and I think it is a bad matchup for the Bruins because I don't think they're going to win the trenches, even on the other side of the ball. I mentioned their offensive line. Let's say their run game, right? Utah, even though they don't have as great defensive tackles as they've had in the past, they are more than capable of taking on double teams. And Lander Barton's still back there. Levi Demouni's coming back from injury. He's a guy who's played a lot of college football, and Utah's got some nice DBs. I think this is a Utah team that is well equipped to beat this Bruins team. And I think this is the best time to get UCLA too, at the start of the year when all these pieces are starting and trying to come together. So I do like Utah in this game. And the more I dive into it, the more I feel really good from a matchup standpoint about Utah going in and making a week 1 statement against the Bruins.
I wonder if this isn't mostly driven by the odds makers knowing how big a story Nico was and the desire for people to bet on. Now, they bumped up UCLA's win total by 1 game from 4.5 to 5.5. I think I like the under there. They bumped down Tennessee's win total from 9.5 to 8.5. So they clearly view Nico as being worth 1 win at quarterback compared to what the alternative would have been. I don't think that's ridiculous. I don't think that's a crazy take. Nico can do a lot of really good things. Let's also remember, JT, it was the biggest games against the best teams and defenses last year where Nico struggled the most. Mm-hmm. Those were the moments where you watched and went, "Oh boy, he's got a long way to go." The potential is immense, and we've seen glimpses and flashes of it. Yes, that is true. But here's the other reason why I think this is this should be Utah minus 6 or 7. Because it's in Los Angeles, week 1. Like, this should be Utes by around a touchdown, maybe a little bit less, because there is something to a team, isn't going to feel defeated in week one. Everybody's optimistic, excited, trying to set the the odds that UCLA comes out flat in this game, I don't think are very high. Same though goes for Utah. Whereas when a team gets down to, where UCLA could be this year, they're sitting 3-7. Yeah, you can come out flat late in the year because you're just trying to play and get on to the offseason and make as many improvements as you can. But the other factor is that Nico went to UCLA after spring ball, right? He didn't have spring camp. He's going to have fall camp, sure. But his time spent, you have 2 new transfer quarterbacks here, 100%. But the time spent for Dampier is many countless hours more than what Nico's got with his teammates. I would legitimately feel better. I do like the Mikey Matthews pickup. I've always liked Mikey Matthews.
I like him.
I think he can be a really, really solid number 3 slot receiver. Like, good football player. Not a game changer, but a good football player. I would feel better about this game for UCLA being at home if they still had J. Michael Sturdivant. If they had a true number 1 well-rounded receiver that can go and just cook somebody or make a big play on third down. I don't know that the Bruins have that with him gone. He's at Florida now. Great pickup for the Gators. But that quarterback battle, yeah, there are questions both ways. I give that advantage to Utah because you just had an opportunity to teach him the offense, get him in tune with his receivers. Like that makes a difference. Guys do it for a reason.
And Spencer, who was Devin Dampier's offensive coordinator last year?
His current offensive coordinator.
His current offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, the guy who developed him, helped him grow into the player he is. He knows his skill set so well. It's a massive thing. Also, look, I do think that the Bruins, I think that this is a team that could be better this year, but they started incredibly flat last year. They came out of the gates not well and nearly lost to Hawaii. Spencer, you were there for Utah's first game last year, and they came out looking decent. And in the first half, they didn't even need to end up playing their guys. What ended up happening there? And with Southern Utah, so different levels of Hawaii, Southern Utah. But either way, I'm not trying to take it personal, not trying to go at your T-Bird.
Good. You better not be taking shots at my birds.
I'm just making the point you were there.
I was.
But this is a Utah team where, like we said, we just know what we're getting with the Kyle Whittingham-led team. And it's just last year, when you look at what happened with Utah, they had bad quarterback play. Watch Devin Dampier and tell me whatever you think of it. Even if you think he's not going to be a good P4, or not going to be a great P4 player. It's hard for me not to believe he's not going to be solid when you look at the other guys who make the jump from group of 5 to P4. He has all the makings to me of a guy who's ready for that next step, that next level. Because even if his arm struggles at times, watch Auburn, watch Arizona, these teams last year, try and tackle him. They can't. He only got sacked 4 times last year. He is incredibly elusive. He led the nation in yards per carry as a quarterback, was the only quarterback in the country to throw for over 2,500 yards and rush for over 1,000 yards. That's who Utah has. So even when plays break down, he's going to be able to make something happen. Find me a mock draft that doesn't have Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu, Utah's 2 tackles going in the first round. We already mentioned that those guys, they returned the 5 starters up front, but how about 2 of them? They're going to be first round NFL draft picks next year too. Washington State, you get Wayshawn Parker in there, 600-yard back too. So this is a Utah team. They return a lot of pieces on defense still. They have their identity. They added and tweaked some things transfer portal wise, and they needed to with how bad they were on offense. But the connection that Devin Dampier and Jason Beck has going way back, just the fact that this Utah team, Morgan Scalley does a great job of making quarterbacks uncomfortable. And this is the time to play UCLA to me, is early in the season, just like last year, because they closed the year well last year. The Bruins did.
They finished really well. They started, I think it was 1-5, and then ended up at 5-7, and I was better than I thought they would do.
And I think it'll be it's a very similar thing this year. I do not think it will start great, especially against a team like Utah. That's just a bad matchup for them. Utah's gone out there and won before. Bruins got them last time they were there too, but Utah has been able to lay it on the Bruins.
That was
new coaching staff.
That was like 4th-year Chip Kelly with Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Zach Charbonnet. This is not that. I mean, it
could be a similar results.
Tino Sunseri, I think, will be a better offensive coordinator than Eric Bieniemy.
Agreed. Well, yes. I mean, they're paying Eric Bieniemy $1 million not to be there, so obviously,
yeah. Nico is capable. I think Morgan Scalley's going to put his mind in a blender there. I've seen him do it with so many different guys, and Nico, with a great supporting cast last year at Tennessee, struggled in the big games. Can't argue the numbers out there, Bruins fans. You can't. And so by the end of the year, it could be good. He could be doing well, but week 1, game 1, I think
It's a bad
UCLA
matchup.
should be grateful this game isn't at Rice Eccles, or it would be. Oh boy, that'd be
Next year will be. Next year will be.
yeah.
So that's where
they could be. They could be better then. That could be a better, better situation to be in for UCLA, even though it's on the road. But
Got to upgrade the supporting cast if you're UCLA for me. I think it's a bad matchup for them.
Yeah, the trenches battle on both sides. I think it favors Utah so heavily here. Quarterback advantage, coaching advantage, team advantage. Like you name it. I'm all in.
Utah fans will travel well to this game, by the way. Like they will go well.
Bet
to this
Utah
game.
minus 3.5 while you can, if you are so inclined. I think that's Utes by double digits. I really do. And then UCLA plays UNLV. So really interesting start to the year for the Bruins with Nico. JC was Locked On Utes. Great as always.